Good morning. It's another edition of Inside Nigeria today, Wednesday, October 13, 2021. And of course, as usual, I'm with my co-host Winifred Obebo.
Good morning, viewers out there, and it's another day with you in the studio for Inside Nigeria.
Yeah, and of course, our Wednesday analyst, Jide Ojo, and Abuja-based public affairs analyst and TV host. Jide, good morning.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
Happy Wednesday.
I don't know if you noticed the trend that every Wednesday you are here.
Yeah.
You have not noticed that.
I move with the flow.
Well, viewers, yes, as usual, we have a lot of things to serve you with today inside Nigeria. As usual, we're starting with Nigeria's most influential newspaper, The Leadership. On the front page of Leadership this morning, Nigeria's education system in a shambles, despite gulping 3.56 trillion naira in 6 years. Nigeria's education system in a shambles, despite gulping a whopping 3.56 trillion naira in 6 years. Recurrent capital expenditures got 2.95 trillion, 374.28 billion respectively. Nigeria yet to meet UNESCO benchmark of 26%. Experts call for increase in education budget. Jide, this is not new, no, very disturbing that we have never in a long time now pay serious or important premium to education sector in Nigeria.
Well, unfortunately so, and this is the bedrock of human capital development. So when you don't play premium on the education sector, how do you intend to groom the leaders of tomorrow? All of us here seated are product of education. That's why we are competitive. That's why we can do what we are doing. Just a few days ago, we celebrated International Teachers' Day, and it's so unfortunate. You see, I like the investigative journalism that is at play, where you dig deep to look at in the last 6 years of Buhari's presidency, how much has been received by. But what question I need to ask is whether this 3.56 trillion is the budgeted sum or the cashback sum. Because a lot of time we mix up this issue of going to look at the budget approved. Budget approved does not mean that's the actual amount that was released. Because sometimes you go, the education ministry will go and meet finance. Finance say we don't have enough money. So you just manage this 50 million naira for now. And meanwhile, you are expecting 500 million. So, but whatever it is, we must not also forget that there are interventionist agencies that have been established by law to also augment whatever comes through the normal budgetary procedure to education. One of them is Tertiary Education Trust Fund, formerly Education Tax Fund. That is giving extra support, financial support to federal and state tertiary institutions. And what TED Fund gives as support to education is humongous. Likewise, the Universal Basic Education Commission. That is the tricky part. The Universal Basic Education Commission, the act setting it up, actually talked about the need for a matching grant. But what we see today is that if you Google, you find out that on the website of UBEC, many states are yet to even access their matching grant, all in the name of not being unable or not being concerned about providing their own matching grant. Because the law says if you have 5 billion with us, you have to bring your own counterpart 5 billion before we will release the 5 billion from UBEC to you. So the last time I checked, a couple of years ago, over 27 states were yet to even claim their matching grant. So what I'm emphasizing is that it's not so much about throwing money at issues. There are deep-rooted issues beyond funding that is facing our education sector. One of them is insecurity. Now, look at the number of mass abductions that are taking place between the last quarter of 2020 and this year. In at least I can point to over 5 mass abduction. Meanwhile, the mass abduction between 2014 and 2020 was just about 3. Chibok, Dapchi, and which other one? I think those are even the 2.
Not okay. That time.
Between 2014 and 20, I think 2018 was Dapchi abduction, where in a matter of days, the over 100 students that were abducted in Dapchi, Yobe State, were released. But in the last 1 year or so, mass abduction in Kagara, in Kankara, in several other places, Kebbi, Yauri, all of them coming back to back, then that is a threat to school enrollment. In spite of the fact that federal government has even initiated through its social investment program, what they call homegrown school feeding program, meant to return students to school. But situations where, apart from even security, the school environment is very deplorable. You don't have good classrooms. You don't have illumination in many classes. You don't have perimeter fence. You don't have toilet facilities in schools. So the learning environment is very, very disturbing. And that's why you see the education sector being in such deplorable state. It's not so much lack of money. There's also the element of corruption that has also been found. I recall that is it ICPC or ICPC investigation revealed that some vice chancellors were misappropriating monies meant for their institution. These are even monies generated internally through all manner of levies that were imposed. And a couple of VCs have been dragged before anti-corruption agencies to come and answer for lack of accountability. So the problem facing Nigeria's education sector is multivarious, from insecurity to corruption to lack of proper learning environment. And so even if you put trillion, okay, this is 3.56 trillion. Even if you put what's after trillion, zillion. If you put it, if you don't have proper monitoring and accountability framework, MIE framework, to track performance, to ensure that the needful is done by different agencies, you will just be pouring water on a leaking roof.
Yeah, actually, beyond that, there is also the issue of priorities and political will. If you look at the statistics, recurrent expenditure 2.95 trillion naira, while capital got 374.28 billion only. So look at the wide gap between money spent on recurrent and the money spent on capital projects in the educational sector. Also, look at the UNESCO benchmark of 26% of annual budget.
Actually, let me tell you something for free. There's no way Nigeria can put
Afford.
26. We can't afford. We are facing insecurity. If you put 26, it's not even
Before insecurity came.
Wait. Even if you put even right now in this 2020 budget, 2021, 2022 budget that the president just submitted, I'm not sure the security and defense got up to 26%. Because there are many areas in which government is challenged.
Exactly.
And if you now put 26% on education, what about other infrastructure?
It also has 25.
Else. So by the time you now give the two, that's already.
But
50.
these two are not. I think the most important aspect of our lives: education and the health sector.
They are. But
But
there are other needs.
let me also say something. What you are tracking here is federal government budget, federal government expenditure.
Yes.
What
What
about
other
the
states?
state?
What are they doing?
Subnational level, the local government under whose purview the primary schools are supposed to be, and then secondary school being under the state government. But you now have a scenario where it is the state government that is even paying primary school teachers. So there will be this disparity although I didn't expect this disparity to be this small, but when you look at the number of teachers in schools, the recurrent book cannot but be this huge. Because apart from paying wages and salary, you also need to look at non-teaching staff.
Yes.
You also need to look at operational costs, like running costs. You have to pay for utilities and all of that. So there is definitely going to be that disparity between recurrent and capital. But just that, are we getting value for the money? That is the big question. If there is no value for money, what do we need to do to make sure that that is attainable?
All right, Julie, thank you very much. I think we need to go to Kaduna. Yeah,
Okay, we are going to Kaduna first.
yes, we need to go to Kaduna according to our schedule. I don't know what the technical people are doing. Well, Winifred, you need to take the national economy. Maybe after
Okay.
that, we'll go to Kaduna.
Okay. National economy today, energy subsidies weigh heavily on revenue economy. Energy subsidies weigh heavily on revenue economy as lack of political will to change status quo hinders Nigeria's growth.
Well, Julie, I don't know what energy subsidy are we talking about.
Fuel now.
Okay, I thought it's electricity because I know.
Well, it's fuel and electricity, the two of them. Don't forget that the federal government said that they are actually subsidizing electricity. That's why it's still, for certain categories of consumers, it's still relatively cheap, particularly those who are not getting up to 12 hours of electricity per day. So federal government is paying subsidy on electricity. It's also paying even much heavier subsidy on fuel. And so that is, I have been an advocate of removal of subsidy because I think it's an avenue to rip off, an avenue to it fuels corruption. I believe that market forces should be allowed to determine the price
Okay.
of these utilities.
Julie, you will also continue to talk on this. Our correspondent is waiting for us in Kaduna for a special report. We need to go to Kaduna, where Isaiah Benjamin, leadership correspondent in Kaduna, will be joining us. Julie, just 2 days ago, yes, the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, reshuffled his cabinet. We are starting commissioners swap positions, and some person are asked to leave the cabinet. But of point is the Kaduna Chief of Staff, Mohammed Sani Getijo, who was the Chief of Staff to the governor, and he has been deployed to the Ministry of Finance and Budget. But then, in the last 24 hours, stories are flying on social media that it was because he addressed the former Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, who is a close friend of Governor Nasir El-Rufai as a former Emir. That was why the governor actually redeployed him, because at the recently concluded Kaduna investment, Kadinvest 6.0, that was why the event or the incident happened. The chief of staff addressed the former emir as former emir. And when the former emir took the mic, he also addressed the chief of staff at that time as, I will call you a former chief of staff. And days later, you will understand what I mean. And days later, he has been redeployed from chief of staff to
former chief of staff.
Yeah, he's not former chief of staff, but
Yeah.
it's still very, very much important in the government because he has been redeployed to a grade A ministry, Ministry of Finance and a budget. We need to look at that video before our correspondent will give us insight as to the events unfolding in Kaduna.
Your Royal Highness, the Emir of Zazzau and the former Emir of Kano.
And to be honest, when I looked through the plan and when I listened to I'll call him the former chief of staff, and you'll understand why later. Next time, don't call me former Emir.
Your Royal Highness, the Emir of Zazzau and the former Emir of Kano.
And to be honest, when I looked through the plan and when I listened to I'll call him the former chief of staff, and you'll understand why later. Next time, don't call me former emir.
Well, Isaiah Benjamin joining us from Kaduna now. Isaiah, what is happening? Did the former emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, who happened to be a close friend of Governor Nasir El-Rufai, did he actually influence the deployment of Mohammed Sani Tijo, the SY chief of staff, to the Kaduna state governor? Talk to us. What is happening?
All right, thank you very much for having me. I'm sure you can hear me clearly. The network
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
actually breaking here, but if you can hear, okay, fine. But you can hear me clearly.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello,
Can hear
can you hear
you.
me,
Go
sir?
on.
Oh,
Yes,
Go
go
oh,
on.
ahead.
very, very well then. Okay, yeah, well, yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure for being part of this discussion. You see, what actually played out, I know, I mean, it took everybody by surprise. During the Cardiff, we thought that the observation where, as it stands now, the former chief of staff referred the uh, 14th emir of Kano as the former emir. I think the emir didn't take it lightly because every other person before him had referred to him as the 14th emir, and that is what is being referred to as it stands now. So if you refer to him, we know very well that once an emir, always an emir. So the issue of former does not come to play. Well, you know, most times when people are faced with cameras, they get carried away. So I want to believe honestly that the former chief of staff, as it stands now officially, couldn't have done that deliberately to demean the Emir Sanusi, who he knows very well, is very close to the governor of Kaduna State, Malam Nasir El-Rufai. Be that as it may, the Emir gave it back to him almost with speed, and what he said uh, materialized just, I think, barely a week or thereabout, or not more than just a few days after the Cardiff ended. Now, that is the situation. Now, talking about the redeployment, well, I think ordinarily all the redeployment didn't take anybody by surprise, but the only took people by surprise was that chief of staff. Now, until he was appointed chief of staff, he was the honorable commissioner for budget and planning, a ministry where he wasn't doing very badly. He was doing really well. When you know, when the president commissioner for finance was the chief of staff, now he was deployed again to the ministry of finance, and the now again redeployed back to the ministry of budget and planning. That Tito was appointed as a chief of staff. Now the question is, of all the redeployment, none seems to be raising questions as much as that of the now former chief of staff back to the Ministry of Budget and Planning. Again, well, we wouldn't know whether it's a coincidence or whether it is deliberate. You know, because changing a chief of staff all of a sudden, then with what transpired during the Cardiff, you know, tells volumes. In any case, other school of thought in the state sees it as, you know, the very first chief of staff to Malam Nasir El-Rufai was the former managing director of the Nigerian Ports Authority, talking about Addis Ababa. Now, to some others, following a sack from the MPA, to some others, they are of the school of thought that probably the governor has plans to again bring her back as the chief of staff. Well, we nobody can say in clear terms what exactly is going to happen going forward. But what we can say, as it stands now, is that the governor, as of today, has no chief of staff as we speak. And chief of staff being part of governance, we do hope that in the coming days, anything will happen. But as it stands, there was a sort of I don't know what terms to use for it now between the former chief of staff and the emir of Kano. But what is said jokingly has materialized. But whether or not it was what really happened that led to his redeployment back to the Ministry of Budget and Planning, nobody can say. But as
Okay, Isaiah. Hello, Isaiah. Can you hear us? All right, it's like we're having challenges with that connection. So today, I'm surprised you are not also aware that something like this happened. And on the social media yesterday, that was the talk of town.
Well,
But did you listen to that video?
yes, I did. I did. And it's just a power game. So all animals are equal, but some are more equal than the other. That's why you need to tread very carefully when you are working with principals that are very powerful. Because I don't know whether the former chief of staff did it out of mischief or it was just a slip.
But is it not a former emir of Kano? Is Sunusi not a former emir of Kano?
You know, your correspondent said he preferred to be referred to as 14th emir of Kano, not former. But
does it change?
You see, for us, I mean, I do say this everywhere I go. I said, look, I'm not a civil servant. I don't know how to do protocols. Many a time when I present papers at government event or civil society,
you apologize earlier.
I do always put it out. Sorry, I'm bad with protocols because some people, if you don't address them, if they are professors, you call them doctor, you are in trouble. If they are chief or high chief, and if they are high chief and you refer to them as chief, they will not even answer you. So some people are so finicky and they are so presumptuous with the titles. But the guy was not wrong. He was not wrong to have referred to Sanusi as former emir. It's not only when you are dead that you can be a former. Yes, even if the case is in court, until the court adjudicate that say you should go back to that road, you remain a former emir. But like I said, while the former chief of staff may have been removed, and you know, Sanusi, he did not hide his feeling because he hit back at the guy that same day by saying the former chief of staff. When he still
and you understand days later.
And you understand days later. You understand. So there's no way you will not attribute what happened to the chief of staff has been the handiwork of Sanusi, former emir Sanusi. I hope I can call him that. No, I don't even know whether it's 10th or 15th or 20th. But if I were to address him in my column, I would refer to him as former emir of Kano. So, and your correspondent actually says something which is also very instructive. Whether this removal was to pave way for the reinstatement of this
Bala Usman. Yeah, they say there's politics about that. No, she was the first chief of staff to ever fight.
Yes, that's what I learned. But I thought she was just suspended from NPA. I didn't know they eventually sacked her.
It's nothing like that. We've not had anything. It seemed to be an endless suspension.
So again,
when they want to cover up something, silence is
just like they did with Magu.
Exactly, and that was all.
Magu, Ibrahim Magu.
Exactly, former chairman of the FCC.
I hope he's still former. Don't get yourself into trouble.
No, because I heard he's still drawing salary.
But the man there has been confirmed by the Senate.
I know, but he will say he was only suspended, he was not sacked. A lot is going on in this country.
But however, I think El-Rufai may have really, I don't know, the former chief of staff now, maybe he holds To have also given him an A-grade
ministry.
That shows the extent to which El-Rufai holds him.
Yes, but then you also want to lend credence to the speech of the former emir that he will cease to be chief of staff.
But it tells you that you don't cross some people. I think maybe what he could have done, what the chief of staff could have done, was to apologize to Emir Sanusi after the event to say, Your Eminence, I'm sorry, it was just a slip of tongue and all of that, so that his prophecy will not come to pass. Because he was a former commissioner for budget and national planning, budget and planning before he was
elevated.
Is there elevation? I don't know.
The chief of staff is it's a man Friday.
Yeah.
It's,
So it's an
Is
exalted.
You will see the governor first before the commissioner.
Exactly.
the chief of staff to the presidency, the president first. In fact, he fixed the appointment between the president and the ministers.
It's the reason why everybody said it was the late Abakari that was ruling now, because he was.
The chief of staff is a big man. So now a kind of downgrade, but he's still important. You are important to us. Come back and stay here.
God, that's the reason why I'm not in government.
But we have to obey the format. This
former and latter is just, may God just have mercy on us.
Thank you very much.
Getting the protocols
we
right.
couldn't establish connection again with our Kaduna correspondent Isaiah Benjamin because his last question ought to have been how much influence does former Imam of Kano has on Kaduna, because he organized a sister birthday there. He's a vice chairman of Kadipa. Just recently, he was appointed as the chancellor of the Kaduna State University. Is very, very much visible in Kaduna. Despite the fact that he's staying in Lagos.
In fact, if offered him a place in Kaduna.
Yes, if he was not officially
the whole court in Kaduna.
Yes, if he was not officially banned to somewhere in Nasarawa before the court vacated.
Yeah, they now negotiated the movement to Lagos.
He could possibly have been ruling from Kaduna. No, he has that. He wills that. I have a lot of respect for Emir Sanusi.
Yeah,
he's a highly cerebral. He's an intellectual philosopher king.
Yes.
But I think he should have not gone that route with the chief of staff. Yes, you can scold him.
Yeah, behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, but not to be this petty. I held him in higher esteem than having to go into a rough fight of why did you refer to me as former emir. But in the real sense of it, you are a former emir because a new one has been appointed in your stead.
But assuming, but not considering to that fact that former emir of Kano, played petty. What happened to an elected governor of the people?
He didn't want to sacrifice his friendship for anything. His friendship with Sanusi. Otherwise, he could just have said, no, Your Eminence, let's forget it. He's a small boy, I will talk to him. But he wants his word to come to pass. Recall that, let me remind you what happened on the was it Obasanjo, when a former governor in South allegedly told Nuhu Ribadu that I will remove you, I will demote you, and he pledged about 3 things, and none of them came to pass. You understand? He openly swore that, look, I will get you sacked, and you will be demoted. Rufai was AIG, as at that time. They demoted him to commissioner of police. You understand? And he was sacked. And he was redeployed Kuru. So some individuals are very powerful. You don't toy with them.
Like they say in the local parlance, power pass power.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you very much. We need to go on a short break. When we come back, we'll go back to our newspaper review.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
Welcome back. It's still Inside Nigeria. Winifred, what do we have next?
Yes. On our menu is the Nation newspaper. Today it says Senate We bow to public on e-transmission of results. Senate, we bow to public on e-transmission of results. Wike, Oye, Ekweremadu, law decision. INEC, we will wait for president's assent. Yesterday, everywhere was agog with the news that the Senate has rescinded its decision on e-transmission of results.
Yeah, and I know this story will interest you because I know you are a stakeholder in electoral matters.
Yes.
Now we have what the public wants, waiting for president's assent.
You know, yesterday was one of the happiest days of my life. They gave me a birthday present, even though my birthday was in April, but it was a good birthday present. Because you see, somebody said, I don't know whether it's Abraham Lincoln or one said, with public opinion against it, nothing can succeed. With public opinion for it, nothing can fail. Public opinion has weighed heavily against the Senate position since it passed the electoral bill on July 15, 2021. And it would seem like they were intransigent because at a recent event where the spokesperson of the Senate appeared at a civil society event organized by Yaga Africa, he was still justifying why that section 52.3 was coined the way it was coined. And I did an opinion article in my column in The Punch to say that, look, this is not right. I mean, I quoted all the legal framework, legal provisions that says INEC's power to organize election is not something you subject to the approval of an agency of government that is set up by an act of parliament. Section 178, Section 160, Section third schedule, Section 15 of the third schedule of the Constitution, all of them give, and in fact, Section 160 says that INEC cannot even be questioned by the presidency. You understand that even under which it is. So that financial and administrative autonomy was going to be subjected to the whims and caprices of an agency of government. And INEC itself had to issue a 24-page report, which I digested, the electronic version, which was shared with me by the leadership of INEC. And I did an opinion article on it. And I said, look, all the fears that were being expressed, and you see that's the politics in MDAs. INEC was able to come out and say, look, as of 2018 August, when the technical committee of INEC and NCC submitted their report ahead of 2019 election, they already told them that there is 93% coverage for transmission of election results, and that the 7% that is left, that the mobile network operators, MNOs, have said that they can deploy solution for that 7%. Are we saying that between 2018 and 2021, there has not been any growth for 100% coverage? And INEC in that report, that or paper, said, look, it does not have to do with generation of network. It's not what's it, 4G or 5G or 3G coverage as we are making. The transmission of election result has nothing to do with any of the Gs. That the solution and what they have done. And you know, INEC is not just doing electronic transmission. It is electronic transmission and collation of results. So they told us in that 24-page paper that, look, that what they have been doing is actually doing a scanning of EC60E report, which is the People's Report, a polling unit, and uploading it on their IREV, that's election review portal. And what they are doing, which they have done about 4 strategic pilots since 2011, spanning 10 years, was electronic transmission and collation of results. So what has been approved for INEC now, if it is eventually assented to by the president, it will help in deepening our democracy.
But there was something they did. They removed transmit and put transfer. I'm wondering, is there any difference?
What transfer of the election result? And whether you transfer or transmit, it doesn't really matter. What matters to us? It's not even for me. It's not whether INEC is going to deploy it in 2023. No, it is just to have. We don't need to go and amend our electoral laws after every election.
Yes.
Do you get it?
Yes.
Did you know from that report that I was able to read, that 24-page report, INEC said way back in 2015, the law as amended by President Goodluck Jonathan ahead of 2015 election has given them power to even deploy electronic balloting.
See?
Do you get it? But they felt that they are not ready to do it. That's why it was not deployed in 2019, and we are still looking at possibility of 2023. But what I'm saying invariably is that let's have a very good electoral act that can serve us about 4 electoral cycles, which is like 20 years before we will even be thinking of amending it. But not that there is a clause in that electoral act that was electoral bill that was passed in July, where they were saying one of the two houses say the use of smart card reader, is allowed. INEC said, look, don't put any name, just say accreditation, any electronic accreditation devices. Because if you say smart card reader and you now decide to use something aside from smart card reader, some people can go to court and challenge you that what you use is not smart card reader. So now INEC is even moving away from smart card reader. For future elections, INEC is using what is called BVAS, bimodal voter accreditation system, which can serve multiple purposes, including transmission of results. So what we are saying is that there is a need to infuse technology into our electoral process so that we limit and reduce considerably human interference.
Yes. Another thing again too that the Senate introduced is a direct primaries by political parties, which is good. Don't you think?
It is good, but I would have preferred that they leave the Section 87 the way it was previously.
To the discretion of the
To
party.
the discretion of political parties. If you know that the delegate system works for you, in which case you do indirect primary, use it. Even APC itself gave that choice under Oshiomhole for 2019. States were choosing between adopting direct or indirect. One thing I know about direct primary is that it's more expensive to organize direct, but it reduces corruption.
Yes,
it reduces corruption because for you now, APC is claiming to have 20-something million members. For you to bribe the entire 20-something million for a candidate to emerge as the candidate of the, you have to go and break the treasury.
Exactly.
But if it's a delegate system, you will just bust them into a place, and then you just take this $5,000 and you share the money, and then you get a larger percentage of the vote. So it reduces logistical nightmare, that's indirect, but it promotes corruption.
Yes.
But direct primary ensures democracy because all eligible voters, it doesn't mean that because you are a registered member, they may say you have to be a financial member, in which case you have to show evidence of payment of your party dues. But it makes you more responsible, and you are also participatory in the governance of your political party.
Thank you very much. Our last paper for the day, that is the Daily Sun. And of course, on the front page of Daily Sun, we're taking a different story. Appointment of security chiefs should be representative, according to the Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed. Appointments of security chiefs should be representative. Bauchi Governor has 2,287 killed in 3 months. Jide, are we getting it right at all about tackling insecurity in this country?
Your guess is as good as mine, but I believe that there is some sense in what Bauchi governor is talking about, the appointment being representative. See, there is what is called fifth columnist in every system. And some people feel that they are not represented in the hierarchy of security chiefs can deliberately undermine the success of the fight against insecurity, because nothing for us now. After all, not them then. You understand? But when you have one of you is because according to the principle of federal character, section 14, subsection 1, subsection 3, subsection 4 of the Constitution, it talks about federal character. You cannot have 10 or 5 service chiefs and you exclude a particular ethnic group. It doesn't portray us as what we call this is representative democracy. That representation is not limited to National Assembly. You must also have representation in the cabinet.
Exactly.
In fact, section 147, subsection 3 of the Constitution says the president is under obligation. It's not discretionary. Must appoint at least one person from each of the states of the federation. Do you get it? That's why you cannot have less than 36 ministers. So your representation is not limited to the legislative arm. The same. So what we are saying is that security is too sensitive to be toyed with. Let's have. You can find merit. You can find gallant officer among all the ethnic groups. So if you appoint an Igbo, an Hausa, an Igbo, does not mean you have sacrificed merit. You are looking for the best from their different groups, so that you give them a sense of belonging. That sense of belonging, or what is called inclusive governance, is very key. It may well be for bragging right. I don't know whether you understand me. Do you know that Igbo can even be the chief of army staff and be the one that will be more ruthless against IPOB?
Yes.
Do you get it?
Patriotic enough.
Yes,
Exactly.
because he has that body.
Exactly.
That you are not nepotistic.
Yes.
So you will not want to deal with them with kids glow.
Exactly.
What do you want? You want to spoil my work?
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo showed the way when he was president. Remember, that was when the OPC menace was springing up in Lagos, and he dealt with them
Mercilessly.
Got Gani Adams arrested
And for many more years.
Exactly.
Yes. So what we are saying is that I'm not against representation as canvassed by Bauchi governor. But in terms of your question, Bode, about whether we are succeeding with insecurity, I don't think so. It's a festering sore, and it's like a cancer that has metastasized. So it's getting worse, and that's why people cannot give due credit to good governance to this administration. Because while they have succeeded in containing Boko Haram insurgency, this insecurity, this banditry, elders farmers clashes has worsened the situation, so much so that it has affected negatively the economy. The economy is no longer thriving, because the other day I read that many of the farmers who got money from the Anchor Borrowers Program are defaulting. They are not paying back. Because how would they pay? They borrowed this money, now they cannot access their ancestral land to go and farm. Some have lost their life's investment to insecurity. So how would they pay back those debts? So those debts are invariably becoming bad debt that will be taken over by AMCON at some point. And it's just because of insecurity, because now when you are chased out of your ancestral land because you want to survive, you relocate elsewhere with your wife and children. Who will give up their own ancestral land to you where you are going to go and be farming with? So you have to either lease land or you buy, and you that is under war, where will you get the resources? So what we are saying is that we need to deal decisively with this insecurity, but there are two approaches to dealing with insecurity. There is the soft approach, there is the hard approach. See, this kinetic approach will never yield the necessary result. If you go kinetic, you have to go non-kinetic as well. What is the non-kinetic suggestion? Provide employment, reduce poverty.
Yes.
When you don't, how would Boko Haram or bandits be recruiting people under your nose? And people will be delighted to go and join those criminal gangs. It's because their options are limited. When they wake up, there's no job, there's no food. So they have something that is offering them food, that is offering them a kind of engagement. So they will jump at
Good
it.
governance is a factor. We have a lot of places ungoverned.
Ungoverned space.
So these people have no person coming to provide them with water and electricity. So if the bandit come or terrorists and say, okay, you are under our government, you're under our rule. They have to succumb.
Did you know that I learned that even in fighting insurgents, that part of the reason why people join Boko Haram is that Boko Haram, even if Boko Haram will not seize your asset, they will just get percentage. So if you are a nether and they come to your community, they will ask for 10% of your cow. So you give them, if you have 10, you give them 2. Abi, is it 1 that is 10%?
One.
So and then if you are a farmer, whatever harvest you give them. But that some even bandits are more ruthless. They will kill you and then take over your property. So why I'm saying that is that we need to look at both the soft and the hard approach. While the military option is not off the table, we need to deal decisively with them. But let's also reduce poverty and unemployment so that people will not be attracted to go into criminal activities.
We will have a situation whereby 2 House of Assembly members from Zamfara have even been suspended because of their links to bandits.
Even emirs and district heads in Zamfara have previously been suspended
or even
deposed. Yes.
But suspension is not the answer. They need to go to the root of the matter and get them punished if they are guilty, or allow them to go if they are not. So we cannot continue to just play politics and the rest of them. Thank you very much, Jide. Jide, there is an unfolding story. I hope we get time another day to discuss. Former Senate President Ken Nnamani is spilling the beans, talking about third term by Obasanjo. He has been talking since yesterday.
He just wrote it.
He said it was a book. Oh, it was a book.
It was a
like
book.
A canary.
Yes, he said
it's a book.
Former PDP chairman Ahmadu Ali was the main pusher of the third term agenda, and now I'm seeing another one that Itagiwa tried to lure him to support Obasanjo for third term.
We know even money exchangers. If you ask former governor of Jigawa State, he was said to be one of those who bankrolled that project.
So we need to actually.
And I know of a House of Reps member who was approached with 50 million naira at that time, but rejected because of his principle. Unfortunately, his colleagues that collected the money, nothing happened to them.
I also know of an activist, a well-known activist then, who got to the House of Reps, and at the end of the day was even supporting
the seeking for the third time might not be a violation of any law. It was an attempt. If it worked through the parliament, fine.
It's unconstitutional to have done that. That's what is killing many African countries.
Exactly.
Do you know 13 African countries have amended their constitution to stay back in power? Even Paul Kagame of Rwanda, Alassane Ouattara of Cote d'Ivoire, and even the recently deposed Guinean president Alpha Conde. That was his nemesis.
Yes.
When he went, and at the age of 82, you still amended your constitution to stay put in power. That's why, it's a 44-year-old now led a coup against.
There are weak democratic institutions in Africa. Nigeria inclusive. Yeah. Yes, we don't have people spending beyond their term limit, but our institutions are weak.
Well,
a lot of things are happening.
It's being strengthened.
Human rights abuses, lack of good governance.
See, that's why what has happened with the electronic transmission of results is very heartwarming for me. So that all this manipulation that takes place at the collision point, where people add 3 zeros to 1 to get 1,000 instead of 1, and all of those shenanigans that takes place, will be frustrated.
But do you know what Senator Adama Lero said, former FCT chair and Kebbi State governor? Why praising their decision? He said, it will entrench good governance. The right people will come to power. And I was like, you knew this.
He didn't say so before.
But you knew this, and
you are joining the That's how this. So that's why public opinion matters on every issue. That's why we cannot do without media. We cannot do without civil society, because these are the two groups that have taken it upon themselves to make sure that they send it back to public pressure to get it. And once we get our recruitment process right, I tell you, insecurity will reduce because the right people will go into office. Then people will start asking, security vote, you collected 2 billion this month. What did you do with it? Then when that transparency and accountability comes in, you will not feel comfortable depriving your people of. You know what shocked me most with even this insecurity? was on May 1, 2017 or 2018, which is available online. When former chairman of EFCC, what's his name? We just mentioned Ibrahim Magu said, look, there are some governors who will orchestrate security crisis in their state because they want to justify their security vote. And some will even use it as a bargaining chip to increase their security vote. So when you have elected representatives like that doing things because of pecuniary gain, then you know that we are in for a very long war against corruption.
Thank you very much, Ajide. Many thanks to you. And I think it's also important that we don't lose our guard with electronic transmission of results. We need to also work for a time to come when we can vote electronically.
Yes,
from the comfort of our homes, from our offices, we can send our vote or post through the post offices.
That should be in view.
Exactly. Thanks to you, Jide. Thank you very much for
pleasure.
creating time to join us this morning. Jide Ojo is an Abuja-based public affairs analyst and a TV host. Winifred, it's time to go.
Yeah, it's time to go so soon.
You spent 52 minutes.
Well, it's been an exciting time here. I just wish our listeners and viewers, let's all do the right thing
At all
so
times.
that Nigeria can be great.
At all times, yes. My name is Bodi Gbadibo from here. Keep a day with us tomorrow for another edition of Inside Nigeria. Bye.